The new Talk Radio 1450 WCTC, the voice of Central Jersey. From politics to entertainment, from social issues to lifestyles, from newsmakers to pop culture. If it's Jersey, it's on Jersey Central with Bert Barron, 732-545-9282. Or toll free at 888-545-9282.
737, we're back on Jersey Central on the new Talk Radio WCTC, the voice of Central Jersey. Bert's Jersey High-Low game coming up a little bit later on. Your chance to win tickets to see Happy 50-ish at the Beckett Theater in New York City. We'll play the game for you a little bit later on and give you a chance to win the tickets. Joining me now on the Raritan Bay Medical Center Jersey Newsmaker Hotline, I want to welcome in State Senator Joe Vitale to talk about what happened this past weekend. Vape Expo New Jersey, that was supposed to happen in Edison, but things did not go exactly as planned. So I want to welcome Senator Vitale back to WCTC. Senator, good morning. It's Bert Barron. How are you today?
Oh, great, Bert. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for making yourself available. I know we kind of hustled this together last minute, but I want to thank you for your time this morning. It sounded like it was going to be, 3 days of vendors who are selling electronic cigarettes or electronic items, vapors and liquids and pipes. But apparently something went horribly wrong with what exactly was going on at this event. And it got so bad that they called you in and that you had to go in there and do some things. Talk about what happened this weekend at the Vape Expo.
Well, this apparently was the first of its kind, sort of an East Coast or regional expo for those who are selling their liquids and marketing the items to business and also was business to consumers. And so the first day on Friday night was business to business, part of Saturday, and the rest of the weekend, both Saturday night and Sunday, was business to consumer. And so it was that they would sell their products or offer sampling and testing different flavors and different devices of electronic cigarette material. The problem, it turns out, is that New Jersey's Clean Indoor Air Act prohibits the use of any smoking, whether it's cigarettes, pipes, tobacco, or electronic cigarettes, indoors. And just as so look at it this way, wherever you're not allowed to smoke cigarettes, you're also not allowed to use electronic cigarettes and what they call vape. Vape, because it's a vapor that is taken in and then emitted, and so the law applies equally, and there are no exemptions.
Were the promoters of this show, Senator, aware that if they were to sample their products indoor, that they'd be breaking the state law?
Well, they told me that their attorneys told them that it was okay. They also alleged that the health department in Edison told them that it would be acceptable. That last part, I don't really believe, respectfully.
Yeah, you and I both know Jay Elliott. I don't see that happening.
He's fully aware of what the law is, and he acted accordingly and appropriately when he found out about it. The promoters told me that their attorneys told them that it was okay, and I had asked them if they had taken the time to read New Jersey's law, and they told me that they had. And I said, well, they must have read it improperly. And when they asked me how I knew that it was, or I thought that it was not permitted, I said, well, not to sound like a jerk, but I actually wrote the law.
Right.
So,
right.
I think that what they did was they said that anyone who paid a fee, whether it was $10 or $25, would automatically become a member of the group. And so since they believe that memberships of private clubs were exempt from the law, that's their way of getting around the law. And I said, well, that's not the reading of the law. It's very clear that there are no exemptions for memberships or clubs or private organizations. It would be the same as if, so let's say the Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW wanted to have a private party and raise funds.
Sure.
And that the members would smoke indoors. Well, you can't smoke indoors, nor could they go somewhere and rent a hall and smoke indoors. And so it applies equally to e-cigarette. And so it became rather contentious. The health department tried to work with them and work with the facility, who I believe also knew full well that this wasn't permitted. But, it's a six-figure rental.
Yes.
So I think that at least in my opinion, that they didn't want to turn down such a great source of revenue for the weekend. And so the health department came down, both local and county. They were ordered to come down, at least the county was, by the state commissioner when she learned of it by advocates who had found out about this. And interestingly, New Jersey Gas, which is an anti-smoking coalition that's national, saw the website about a month ago when they were advertising this and marketing it to individuals, and they actually called the health department and raised the issue. The health department raised the issue with the facility manager, and they were supposed to work this out. So on Saturday, they promised that they would put out tables outside so that people could go outside and sample or go outside and just vape. But I got to tell you, and look, I have no judgment about vaping. I think that for those who want to quit smoking, this is one way to do it. It's still not safe, but it is less harmful than cigarettes. But, so I respect it. I think it's a good thing to do.
Right.
But it was a very surreal experience being there, actually observing people vaping. I've never seen so much vapor in clouds, and it hung in the air like a London fog. And there are 6 known carcinogens in vapor, in addition to nicotine. So it was a rather unhealthy environment in the total. There was so much vapor in the air. They had fog machines there to make the place look kind of fun, but the vapor itself had permeated everything.
Wow.
And it was not a healthy environment. In fact, one of the police officers that was there off duty but in uniform as security told me that when I met him in the lobby, he said, I had walked the floor for about 15 minutes. I had to get out. I could barely breathe and my eyes were burning. So, it was not a healthy environment in total. And I do, at the end of the day, feel sorry for the vendors who I think were sold a bill of goods.
Yeah, it sounds
that
like
it would be okay.
Right. I mean, since this was marketed, according to the woman there from Gasp who reached out to you, that it was marketed as an indoor vaping opportunity, which right there is illegal. There's no such thing. You can't promise anybody that because in New Jersey you can't do that.
Right. And so people were saying, well, how do you sample some liquid that's put into the cartridge and vaped? And I said, well, it's an interesting question. Obviously, you can't take someone's samples from a table, a vendor, and then go outside and promise to come back. I guess certainly you would, but so practically speaking, it wouldn't work. And so I suggested to the promoters that next year you should rent, let's say, the Middlesex County Fairgrounds
Yes.
at probably a fraction of the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Set up a bunch of tents, and you can do it outside on a nice day and have a rain date. There are ways to do this without violating the law that was intended to protect individuals and people who work there, because there were employees of the facility. There were police officers and other security detail that were there that were exposed to all this vape and all this vapor. And, it was not a healthy environment. I even saw someone walking a dog on Saturday inside the facility, and it really bothered me a lot.
Wow.
So, it was just a real mess from beginning to end. Again, the vendors were, I believe, sold the bill of goods that it would be okay, and they were a little exercised, as you can imagine, that they had to. They were ticketed, and the facility was ticketed. The promoters were ticketed. Tens of thousands of dollars in the aggregate, and so I'm sure we'll see how that all plays out.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a reason why facilities like the Convention and Expo Center. There are reasons why they don't host cigar conventions because you can't sample inside. In New Jersey, you're not allowed to do that. So you would never see an event like that. So why would they even think they could get away with this one at all? Is kind of surprising. And I know it was shut down early yesterday. I know they did close the doors about 4 hours early yesterday. Just to kind of deal with this. I'm wondering now if going forward, if maybe the Edison Health Department wants to go in and assess this facility and see if it's safe for inhabitants, to see if it's safe for events going forward here now.
Well, my concern is the environment. So there was so much vapor in that room, in that hall for 2.5 days that I'm sure that the ceilings and the joint and every square inch of that hall is covered with residue or residual material from the vaping, and including nicotine, which obviously is not a good thing, including some of the other carcinogens. And there's one chemical that's in vapor that was banned in making the microwavable popcorn. Forget the scientific name of it, but it's a carcinogen. And so, again, for those who vape and want to quit smoking and sell their wares to those who are like-minded, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, they're right.
But it has to be done. In the right way, and they're a very passionate group. I get that. I've met with them before on different bills, and They're a very passionate group of people, and I respect their entrepreneurial, endeavor and their attitude. But we have to do it in a manner that complies with the law. Whether you like the law or not, it is what it is,
Sure.
and it's meant to protect people.
Yep. I mean, there are shops popping up all over Jersey, some of which are advertising partners of ours, and we're fine with getting their message out and talking about their product and service. And as long as it's done the right way and everybody goes home happy and safe and healthy, then that's fine. That's the way to do it there. But recently, in New Jersey Monthly Magazine, Senator, there was an article about these shops that are popping up, but they even said in the article, technically, every time someone goes to one of these little boutiques and samples the liquid inside, they're technically breaking the law from the bill that you sponsored. That's true too, right?
Right. And so if you're in operation before, the way the law works, so if you're a cigar bar or a cigar store that existed before the law took place in 2004, you can have a testing room in the back that's vented. So if you go to a cigar store, they'll have maybe a humidor, of course, and then
Sure.
they'll have an area where they can sample and test the cigar. But in this case, you can't. And so, when someone said, "Well, how do you have a convention where you're offering samples that you can't sample?" Good question. But again, it should have been done outdoors. And I said, "Well, you can go to a gun show and an ammunition show, but you can't fire a gun inside." So,
Hmm.
it's not really apples and oranges. It's just a difficult thing to deal with. But if you do it in the right way, in the right venue, and I had suggested to them do this outdoors next year, and they thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
At probably at a fraction of the cost, because I think it was six figures to rent the facility. They tell me, at least for the weekend.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
that's a lot of money. So like people had paid to get in. There were thousands of people over the weekend, and so in some ways, I'm sure that the vendors, or rather, the vendors did well, and the facility, and the promoters made their money. But of course, there are the fines, and so therefore, they're going to challenge those fines. But you really can't challenge what the law says. In fact, the promoters had their attorneys come down over the weekend. I think a new set of attorneys,
Yeah.
and they really didn't put up much of a fuss. I think they knew what the law said, and that we were pretty clear about what it did.
Yep, understood. And this is a venue that once a year, Senator, hosts an adult-themed expo every year, and everything's above the board. There's no problems. There's no issues. If that industry can get it right, you would think this one can too, right?
Yeah, well, they used that as an example. They said, well, there are porno expos here, and I'm like, well,
Right.
okay, well, they have the right to have one as long as they do it legally and there's no funny business. So, you may not approve of that kind of stuff, but they have a right to have an expo. They just have to comply with the law, and the law is pretty straightforward.
Right, exactly. Well, Senator Vitale, thank you for your time this morning. I really appreciate you making yourself available. I don't like to text my elected officials on Sundays because I know they need some time off too. But thanks for getting
Well,
back to me, and it was good to have you on the show today.
well, we're 24/7, and don't forget we've got softball for Habitat for Humanity coming up in September. So
Looking
get to
forward
that
to
out.
it. Yeah, looking forward
Uh,
to it. And we'll have a better showing this year, Senator. I promise you that.
you guys are great. Thanks so much, my
Have a
friend.
good day. Thank you. All right, good to talk to you. All right, Senator Joe Vitale.